Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the City of Somerville Zoning Board of Appeals for our Wednesday, November 17th, 2021. First order of business tonight under general business is we have a new board member to welcome, and her name is Ann Fullerton. She's an architect. Ann, would you like to say hello?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Susan. My name is Ann Fullerton. As Susan mentioned, I've been practicing architecture in the Boston area for over 20 years, both commercial and residential. And I'm very familiar with the zoning process, have been through it personally as a proponent in many municipalities, and I'm really looking forward to serving the community.
Thank you and welcome. I was remiss in that I didn't read our little disclosure here. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of the 2021, this meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals will be conducted via remote participation. An audio recording of these proceedings will be available upon request to planning@somervillema.gov. That's planning@somervillema.gov. Our next bit of business is approval of minutes for October 6th. Could I please have the clerk make a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of October 6th, 2021 as submitted.
May I have a second? Seconded by Elaine Severino. All in favor of approving the minutes from October 6th, 2021, please say aye when called upon. Elaine Severino.
Aye.
Ann Fullerton.
Aye.
Catherine Garavaglia.
Aye.
Josh Safdie.
Aye.
Ann Brockelman.
Aye.
And Susan Fontano. Aye. Let the record show it was unanimous. Next item is, we're going to take a case out of order here tonight. We're going to go with 27 Cutter Street / 32 Glen Street. It's a new case, so while you folks are getting on board, I'd like the clerk to open it, please.
Madam Chair, this is 27 Cutter Street, 32 Glen Street, P&Z case number 21-133. North American Development LLC seeks a revision to a previously issued special permit and special with site plan review. I think that should say special permit with site plan review, issued July 28th, 2018. That was ZBA case number 2018-64.
Thank you. Good evening. Is the applicant out there?
Yes, good evening, Madam Clerk, members of the board, Attorney Ann Vigorito, 424 Broadway, Somerville, Massachusetts. Happy to be here this evening. I'm joined by my team of from the North American Development LLC, Jason Santana and Maureen McGovern. I'm also joined by the architect, Evan Stillman of Khalsa Design. So I will give a brief overview. Madam Clerk, if it's okay to proceed.
Yes.
This is a revision of a special permit. This was under the old code so it was pursuant to 441 and site plan review. This is issued by your board in July of 2018. A building permit was issued in May of 2019. Approval was granted for the addition of 6 residential units to the existing single family on 27 Cutter Street. One of those units would be a low income unit as well. This past spring, with a follow-up inspection by ISD, it was discovered that the building was set back from the front and side lot line differently than permitted by this board in July of 2018. The front setback, which the permitted front setback was to be 10, the built condition was 9.6, so there was a difference of 0.4. And the right setback, the permitted site back was 10, the built condition was 8.2, so the difference was 1.8. These very small encroachments would not detrimentally impact the surrounding properties. It would not contravene the findings or conditions set by this board. It would not detrimentally impact the matters of substance, nor would it alter the essence of this development. This past spring, upon the discovery by ISD, they did issue 5 certificate of occupancies for the units. They were issued, as I stated, and those units have been sold, and they are with residents currently occupying them. ISD held back 2 certificate of occupancies, one of which is the slated affordable unit. This unit does have an eligible buyer who is waiting to purchase the unit. So that's where we stand at this juncture. Further, we did submit a letter, I think a couple of days ago, from one of the abutters, Joe Boldick. He lives at 36R Glen Street, and he favorably speaks of the developer as well as this project. He's been very happy with the development, and you know, he actually said he's going to be sad to see them go, which is a rarity in this business. I also did reach out to Ward 1 Councilor Matt McLaughlin. I made him aware of this matter this evening. I didn't hear anything negative from him, and I know if he had an issue, he would contact me immediately. So if the board would like at this time, I can have the architect, Evan Stillman, review the site plan with the board.
Okay, thank you.
Charlotte, may I please share my screen?
Yes, this is Charlotte speaking. Give me 1 minute to make you the presenter.
I'm sorry, this is,
Evan, you should now be able to share your screen.
can everybody see this?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I'm looking at the site plan here. The bottom of the street is the front, Cutter Street.
No, Evan, we're not
I'm sorry.
seeing that. At least I'm not. I'm seeing your calendar and Wednesday's calendar. There we go. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't get
There
to
we
choose
go.
which screen I'm sharing. Here we go. So
Okay.
the bottom right is Cutter Street on this sheet. The 2 diagrams to the left show the ground coverage. This further left diagram is what we had proposed initially, and the middle diagram here is what was actually constructed. So as you can see with this dark gray region, the structure is actually skewed slightly. So it's slightly closer to the right side lot line and slightly closer to the front lot line. Looking at the larger site plan, I'm going to zoom in at the bottom right here. So the light gray here is what we had initially proposed, and then the dark gray outline is what was actually constructed, and the middle color is what's shared between the 2. So at the front left here, you can see the setback was 20 feet as designed, and it was constructed at 22 feet. On the right side, you can see that the setback was designed as 10 feet, and it was constructed as 8.2 feet. The front here was designed as 10 feet, and it was constructed as 9.8. Other than that, there were some slight differences in the ground coverage. What was actually constructed for the ground coverage was 28%, and it was designed as 28%. There was just a slight difference in the square footage. The landscape area was initially designed to be 42%, and we're at 37%, and same thing with the permeable area. Other than that, there's no other changes to the site plan. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Is that it, Ms. Vigorito, from your people?
I mean, you know, this is, and I'm not, you know, being derogatory. I mean, it's a very small issue that occurred. You know, it is very unfortunate, but, you know, there has been a review of it. And, you know, I know looking at the analysis that the planning department has done, they don't find this to be an issue for the overall project. You know, we deal with this all over Somerville, a housing shortage. I mean, we have 2 units, one that's slated to be an affordable unit ready to go onto the market. And, you know, we're hoping that the board would, with kindness, you know, approve this revision. Thank you, Madam Chairperson and the members of the board.
Thank you. So is there anyone, Charlotte, from the public that's here to speak for or against, or has any questions regarding this matter?
For members of the public who wish to submit public comment on this project, please raise your hand and we can recognize you so that you can speak directly to the board on this project. I will give it a few seconds, but Madam Chair, I'm not seeing anyone with their hand raised wanting to give testimony.
Okay, so at this time, I'll close the public portion of the matter of 27 Cutter Ave and open it to our board for their questions and comments, if any. Anybody has anything to say? Ian, Elaine Severino?
Yes, I just wondered where part of it is involved in the very small amount of, I think it's 4 inches in the front. I wondered, and the right side, so that's what I looked mostly at when I went down there. It is a nice looking building. I was just, and we have nothing to do with the design. I was a little disappointed to see a stockade fence there in the front, kind of closing the project off from the neighbors. It is only 4 feet high, so it's not like it's a 6-foot fence. It isn't. I just thought that would be, it doesn't look very welcoming to the neighborhood or the surrounding people. I know there's a parking lot across the street from it. So, and that's design. We're not in, but I wanted to just make a comment because the front is involved, even though it's only 4 inches. There's absolutely no remnants of landscaping, and I know the time of the year, we're in November, and there's absolutely nothing but dirt in the front yard and dirt along the right side, which is what we're also concerned with. And I know this is not the time of the year other than plants or bushes that go in, certainly no flowers, but there's, I just wondered who, since the units are being sold and some are sold and some are occupied, who then is responsible for getting that landscaping in if all the owners are there? Do the owners do it? Do the people who constructed the place come back and do it? How is that handled?
Hi, Ms. Severino, this is Attorney Ann Vigorito. I mean, generally because these are condo units, there is a condo association. However, 2 units have been held back and, you know, we were awaiting the certificate of occupancies. I could make this suggestion that, you know, in the spring, some plantings are placed in. I mean, I'm sure we're on I'm on a chat thread with the development team, and they could make the suggestion of doing some plantings in the spring, because like you said, now that we're into mid-November, you know, they wouldn't survive. So, you know, I can make that suggestion and they could probably bring it up at the next condo association meeting.
So if that's only a suggestion, I get leery of the fact that anything, I know there were trees. I saw the trees that were planted and the trees along the side, the right side, where it's only a suggestion. I just get suspicious of the fact that since it's behind a stockade 4-foot fence, nothing will ever get put behind that fence and the dirt will just remain along the front and along the right side.
Would you like a condition? Elaine, would you like a condition?
I think a condition would be better than a suggestion.
I apologize, Ms. Severino. I mean, you know, I say it as a suggestion, but of course a condition is fine. I just don't think it could occur probably until the spring though, as you know, as we've discussed because of the weather.
And I understand that, but I just, where the landscaping has now gone from 42 to 37 and there's just nothing there but dirt. I just want to make sure it gets in there. You know, I don't know, do we have the landscape police that come down and watch it, or who's going to make sure that that happens in the spring?
I believe the ISD would do that.
If it
Yeah,
was a
if we
condition?
put yeah, Elaine, if we make a condition and it's for the springtime, I'm sure Charlotte will advise us or Sarah can advise us of what happens what's the protocol? Is there a certain tick, a sheet that comes up? Sarah, you understand the question? If we put a condition tonight attached to this, how do we know come springtime when everything starts to happen and go into action, this will take place? How does that happen?
The ISD would have to go out and check.
And how does ISD know to go out and check?
Well, if it is in one of the conditions, then they would know to go out and check. But I think I have a question first, if I could, Madam Chair.
Please.
Could the applicant team or Evan, could you tell me what the approved landscape percentage was and what the built landscape percentage was? Because I can't see the chart. And I just want to make sure that if we're asking a condition to be added, that it has rough proportionality to the ask.
Yes, this is
Sarah,
Evan
not-
from Proposal Design.
I'm sorry.
So approved was 42%, actual constructed was 37%.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
And Sarah, not to interrupt, but I'm being told by the developer that the plans did call for lawn. And I know Ms. Severino said she saw dirt, but it may just be that the lawn hasn't come up yet.
No, there's nothing there but dirt. I know what a lawn looks like at this time of the year.
Like I said, I asked the question to them because I just, I was out there some time ago and I didn't see anything, but I thought maybe they had prepared some sod or something for the lawn.
No, there is no sod there.
Okay. I mean, they'll be fine with the condition of plantings.
Does anybody, I have the packet, the attachment from July of 2018. Does anybody see a condition there that speaks to the landscaping or plantings? I see the affordable housing, pre-construction. Do you folks have it?
Madam Chairwoman, I do see under condition 19, it says landscaping should be installed and maintained in compliance with the American Nurserymen's Association standards.
Okay.
And then
okay.
an updated site and landscaping plan. I don't see where there's exact,
Yeah.
what planted.
Okay. All right. So I would think, if it's all right with everybody, and Charlotte and Sarah, steer me if I'm wrong, why don't we just add a condition to that, update this a little bit so we'll know that that's coming forward. And I can see things have been laying dormant for a while. And, everybody has the same reason or excuse, whatever you want to say, the COVID, getting out there. So let's just bring this up to date. Charlotte, can you perhaps compose something for us so when Josh makes the motions, he'll have that?
This is Charlotte speaking. I will just come on camera. If you can describe the goal that you want this condition to achieve, staff can write the exact wording of the condition afterwards.
Essentially, Madam Chair, where do you want that landscaping installed specifically? And if I could also ask the question, Ms. Vigorito, your client will voluntarily enter into that condition. They're good with that?
They are, I mean, they're telling me they'll put down fresh sod as soon as they can get it.
Mhm.
I don't know if that would, if that would satisfy the condition.
Well, I don't know if it's getting too cold. We just put sod down in our place last week in work, and it took beautifully. You got to get out there watering it before 2 in the afternoon because it gets too cold, and the little roots, they freeze. So are you looking, Elaine, are you looking for them to throw something down like that now to make the property more attractive? Or are you willing to go with something for the spring?
I think whichever the applicant or the developers are more comfortable with. I just want to make sure it's done. Right now, it's quite ugly. If the condo owners are okay with having an ugly front that's covered with a stockade fence anyway, and an ugly side, and maybe would like something prettier in there other than lawn, which of course they're discouraging lawns now. But it's, I think, as long as that area ends up green. I know, as I say, lawns are discouraged, but if they're going to put in lawn, that's up to them. But I know it needs to be 37% landscaping, and I just wanted to have some sort of a guarantee because I didn't see anything other than dirt and new trees that were down there. If it's going to be done in the spring, fine. If it's going to be done now, the only thing that could go down now is sod or more trees or bushes.
Yeah, no.
I just want to
Excuse
make
me,
sure it's done.
excuse me,
Um,
what's the story about why are they discouraging lawns?
Because they give the Somerville Garden Club is and many garden clubs are against that. They offer nothing to nature, nothing for bees, nothing for
I get
birds.
it.
I mean, Madam Clerk, Ms. Severino, if, I mean, the developer, they'll put sod down as soon as possible. That way, for the spring.
All
it'll
right.
probably make sense.
Find with your experts in the gardening, the nurseries and stuff, what would be appropriate to now to spiff it up a little bit.
Sure,
All right, Ann?
understood.
Okay. And so do we need a condition of that? What's the consensus? Yes?
Madam Chair, if I may, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but
Catherine.
thank you. I have to recuse myself from this case, so I don't want to comment. I think it's appropriate that I do it now as opposed to when we go for a vote.
Why is that?
I have a conflict with the developer.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're an alternate anyway, right? Good.
Yes,
We've got a full staff here tonight, so that shouldn't hurt us. Thank you for speaking up, Catherine.
thank you.
Okay, Charlotte, you'll take care of that with the applicant on the wording. So here's my question. So I want to ask the board, is there any other concerns about the required condition, considerations that we've agreed to on the Ann Brockelman?
Yes, I wonder if we could open up, discuss the landscape issue a bit more before concluding on a condition, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
I would like to see the project comply with the permeable and landscape percentage requirement, and I don't see how that is impossible. I understand, that we're not going to ask them to move the whole building 6 inches, but I think the landscape issue is quite open and not hard to, achieve. So I think my first question is, and maybe I missed it when Elaine spoke about it, are all the green areas supposed to be grass, or that's just under the landscape umbrella, whatever that is, mulch, not turf grass? And then another question for the applicant, the percentage for landscape and permeable area are the same. So that is all the green, everything designated green, correct? That's the same area, landscape and permeable? Because sometimes permeable is permeable pavement. It doesn't have to be green.
This is Evan from Costa Design. Yes, that's correct. Everything shown in green here, and these paths were both landscape and permeable per the older zoning code.
And in your drawing at the front, I see 2 hatches, right? The driveway and then a darker hatch. What are those 2 different materials? I couldn't find a legend.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. This is the asphalt paving, and then the crosshatch are the pavers.
Pavers. Okay. So that's permeable?
The walkway. I'm sorry?
So that's not permeable?
No,
Paver?
it is.
It is.
Mhm.
So there's something, and that counts as landscape then?
Per the old zoning code, yes, that's my understanding.
Okay. I mean, when you subtract 481 design, minus 426, that's 600 square feet. That's quite a lot. That's, 30 by 20. So I'd like to see that made to comply. That 600 square feet put back into either landscape or permeable. So there's many ways you can do that. You can, the front of your driveway, that's looks like 15 feet. 15 feet, 40 foot in, that's 600 permeable. So that would be what I'd like to see, Madam Chair. And
Does
as
the
for
applicant understand that?
So it's my understanding, you'd just like us to make up the permeable area back to the approved permeable area.
yes,
And
I don't
kinda
see
go
a
with that
hardship
with
in not
a
achieving that.
permeable area.
Hey, wait a
That's
minute, everybody. First of all, excuse me, Ann Brockelman. Evan, however you're speaking or whatever you're speaking into, it's all muffled.
I'm sorry
We go
about
through
that.
this all the time. Speak up and clearly and slowly, and don't keep talking over each other. Ian, tell him exactly what you want so they can make their notes and go forward. You're saying this whole area where it's asphalt, you wanted to change that.
I'm saying that there are a variety of ways that you can get back that percentage, right? So it's up to the landscape designer and the architect, but I don't see a reason to ask for a variance or hardship on not achieving the landscape and permeable percentage.
Evan,
Yes,
Evan?
can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
So the client is willing to add a permeable apron here. I think what had happened between the approval and what was actually constructed is the asphalt driveway here grew a little bit for access concerns. So that's where the difference is. But we are willing to add a permeable apron to make up that permeable space.
Ann and Elaine, you want to weigh in on this? So we've got the apron.
Yeah, that
And
sounds good.
what are we?
About,
Okay.
sorry, Matt, that's
And
about
what
6.
are we looking for? Yeah. And what about the sod? Are we doing some sod right now, or is it too late?
Madam Chairwoman, but the development team is telling me they will get the sod as soon as possible. They want to put it down now so that in the spring, it will
It'll
already
be
be there.
beautiful. Right.
Exactly. That's
Elaine? Thank you. And Elaine, or Ann, any more comments to put in on this right now? Speak now.
Is it going to go in as a condition, or are we just going to go with the old conditions that,
No, I'd like to make it a condition
okay,
to make sure it happens.
okay.
What if somebody, somebody on their team changes, somebody new comes in, they don't know. So it should be a condition, I think. Is that all right with you, Ms. Charlotte? Josh Safety. Can't hear you, Josh. Okay. No.
How about now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. I was just going to say, maybe we could have a condition in the previous decision. There was condition 20 that the applicant submit updated site and
Right.
landscaping plans for approval by staff. And then number 19 was landscaping should be installed and maintained in compliance with the American Nurserymen's Association standards. Maybe we could
Update those.
we could attach one condition to this decision, which says that the applicant will revise and resubmit an updated site and landscaping plan showing the areas of permeable surface that will bring the project back into compliance with the zoning requirements.
Mhm. Good.
And we'll bring the landscaping up to the American Nurserymen's Association standards, as soon as possible, given weather conditions.
Right. How's
I don't
that,
know
Charlotte?
if the sod's all going to die if they put it in right now. I don't want to make them put it in just to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But
Well, that's why what you're suggesting is they'll check with the proper professionals to see if it's too late for that. If not, they'll go for it. Ian Brockelman, you had your hand up.
Yeah, it's just a quick correction. The landscape percentage not in compliance with zoning, but with what's permitted,
right, thanks, Ann.
which is above, acknowledge it's above zoning. But I mean, I think
Which is 35. It's going to be what, 37 now?
it's 42, right, with whatever was designed and permitted.
Okay. All right. So, is this so also under number 2, it says here to ask the board wishes to apply the staff recommended permit conditions. So we've just addressed that. Are there any other additional conditions or comments from the board right now that you don't feel we're covering? Yes, Ian Fullerton. Ian Fullerton?
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question for the design team. And actually, if anybody that responds can please turn their camera on, it's sort of hard to talk to the ether. I'm wondering how you guys how the build team set their foundation marks. Did you use a surveyor to pin your foundation limits? Were you permitted under the old foundation and build combined permit, or the new ISD permit system where the foundation and the build permit are separate?
This is Evan from Calsa
Okay,
Design.
Hi, Evan.
Evan from Calsa Design here. So the surveyor did pin the foundation. Unfortunately, he could not attend tonight. And I believe it was permitted under the old permitting system.
So what do you feel that the survey pins were off, or that there was an error after the pinning?
I'd defer to the general contractor. Jason, are you on the call that you can answer that?
This is Charlotte speaking. I am unmuting and making Jason able to share his video.
I am trying to see if my camera is on.
There you go, Jason.
Yes.
Hi, this is Jason Santana with North America Development. And yes, we hired a surveyor and a landscape and a foundation company to do this. We don't do this in-house. And yes, they were the responsible ones for pinning and put the foundation in the right location. However, I also believe that this was under the older permit that we only submitted as build afterwards. So it wasn't in process yet that now in Somerville, as soon as you put a foundation, you need an as-built before you start framing. So that's why we only discover, and we have our final inspections and everything got done. And then we only zoning, when they did the measurements, they found out that the building was slightly out of place.
Thank you for the clarification. It helps us understand for future what might have happened to have your foundation offset.
And just for us as a company, we are also implementing now that as soon as somebody starts putting footing, we have multiple people double checking so we don't go through this type of problems again.
Great. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Ann, for
Ann,
that.
for
Thank
asking.
you, Jason,
Thanks for
Evan.
asking if we could turn the cameras on.
Yeah,
We've been doing
Well-
this for almost 2 years now, and I just assumed that we couldn't, but it's so much nicer to be able to see the applicants than not.
Is,
Yeah, I didn't realize that I could turn my camera on.
Well, and
Yeah.
if I could, Madam Chair, the only time that anybody in the audience can actually use their camera is if we change them from an attendee of the meeting to somebody at our level as panelists or presenters. So we can't do that with members of the audience, because once we turn you off as a presenter or a panelist, then it kicks you out of the meeting and you have to come back in again. That's just unfortunately the way the software works. So the only reason that we get to see these two gentlemen tonight is because we had to give them another status so that they could share their screens.
Charlotte, just for the, we weren't going to get into this tonight, but I'm glad it turned out to be a positive experience. And I feel I've got some backing for me. They got my back. Charlotte and I have been talking about this and for a little while now. And as of today, we decided we wouldn't cover it under other business, but in another date, I want to sit with Charlotte, go over everything, understand everything. And we didn't want to necessarily surprise any of the applicants or their team that they would not have been prepared to go on camera. So we figured in the future, we'll let them know from the onset that's something that's a possibility. I personally relate to seeing people when they're making their plea. I mean, when I saw Jason tonight, I haven't seen him in so long. It was wonderful. And even Evan, I mean, I remember them coming up to the chamber. So it's a positive. It's a feel good. And I think it makes things run smoother. So I thank you, Ann, for your interest as well, because I've been looking for it. And Charlotte was going to get on it. So here we are. And Charlotte will just move forward as planned. Sound good? Charlotte?
Yes, Madam Chair, I will give all applicants the ability to turn on their camera once we get to their case.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Can
Okay, so,
Excuse me
hello,
for-
yes, Jason.
Yeah, can I, since
Yeah.
I'm, you guys, I just been informed by somebody on my team. If you look at the screen on the bottom, the 2 parking areas that we have close into the building next to the tree, we did those as exactly that one as permeable pavers as well. So I believe that the numbers don't reflect what's actually has been built. So somebody on my team just reflected that to us that those 2 parking spots right there, we also added as permeable pavers. So I know we have to do the recalculation, but my assumption that we should be much closer than what's reflected right now.
Okay, so who on the team is working with this applicant? Is it Sarah White or Charlotte?
Madam Clerk, it's Andrew Graminski. I mean, Sarah White's been overseeing it, but we've been working more with Adam Graminski.
And Madam Chair, if I may, since Adam, that is correct that Ms. Vigorito has been working with Adam Graminski. However, from now on, it will be Dan Bartman and I that will be taking over anything remaining with this project.
All right, so my point is, will you then work with the applicant in bringing everything together and up to date before it goes, I mean, we're going to vote tonight.
Right.
I feel that's safe and it's the pleasure of the board. But I'm asking, of course, you and Dan, what better than that? So here we go. I'm sure you'll get everything all lined up, get the extra little footage in there, and everything that should be done is done. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, guys. Nice to see you again. So I'm gonna, if nobody has any other comments from the board, it's the pleasure of the board that will ask the clerk to make a motion and to mention about the upgrades on the landscaping, Josh. And Elaine?
don't we need to
Elaine,
add
go
that
ahead.
condition?
Yeah,
Don't
he's
we
going
need
to.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I just thought we were going right to a vote.
well, we are going to go to a vote, but he's going to add the condition when he makes his presentation, the
Okay.
motion. Am I right on that, everybody? Shake your heads, okay. I don't want to mess up here. Because I'm all excited. I'm getting to see people on camera here. So Charlotte, we're going to make a point that Catherine had to drop out, recuse herself. Everybody, now, is everybody here full-time members? There's no alternates, right?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Catherine's the alternate. Thank you. So, okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us. Beautiful. Okay. I think we're all in sync here. Mr. Safdie, Mr. Clerk, would you please make a motion?
Madam Chair, in the matter of 27 Cutter Street, 32 Glen Street, P&Z 21-133, I make a motion that we approve the applicant's request for revisions to the previously issued special permit and special permit with site plan review issued July 28th, 2018. Adding one condition that the applicant will resubmit an updated site and landscaping plan reflecting the percentages of landscaping and permeable surface to which the project was originally designed and permitted, and conditioning as well that the applicants maintain landscaping to the standards of the American Nurserymen's Association as reflected in the previous approval.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Elaine Severino. All in favor, as I call your name, please say aye. Elaine Severino,
Aye.
Ann Fullerton,
Aye.
Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
Josh Safdie,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show it was 5 board members voting, and they were all in the affirmative. Thank you very much, applicants. Good luck. Make it look good.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk, members of the board. Wishing you all a happy and safe Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item up is 59 Albion Street. Welcome, Catherine. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is a new case as well, 59 Albion Street, case number P&Z 20-010. Marilyn Modinger proposes to establish a backyard cottage in the neighborhood residence district, which requires site plan approval.
Thank you. Good evening. Is the applicant here? Hello.
Hi.
Wow, this is exciting. I hope I can contain myself for the rest of the meeting. Welcome, Marilyn.
Hi.
So you want to tell us what to do?
Yes, I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. All right, what are we seeing?
Right
Please?
now, it's just a blank card with the address.
Okay, that's good. That's what we want to see. All right, that's what we're going to start with. Okay. I can't see what you guys see, so that's throwing me off a little bit. All right. So we're here tonight to talk about 59 Albion Street, which is a backyard cottage proposal. Some folks have seen, not the board yet, but Charlotte and Sarah have seen our project making its way through for quite some time. This is also, as I understand, the first backyard cottage proposal that's coming in under the new zoning ordinance. So there was some, I saw in the materials a conversation about the process that we've gone through and whether that conversation happens tonight or whatever. We're happy to share our experience with going through the process, of which this is one of the final steps. We're here, we made it. And just to clarify those steps that we went through, it was included in the memo, but so we had to do 2 neighborhood meetings, and we had to go before the UDC, all of which we've done. We've checked all the boxes, we've gone through, and we had no neighbor objections through our meetings, have support from our ward counselor, Mark Niedergang, and we also had unanimous recommendation to proceed from UDC. So that is to sort of set the stage of where all the vetting that we've gone through so far. So,
Great, thank you.
I'll keep it pretty quick here. So the homeowners are here on the call listening in. Kate and Daryl have lived in this house for a few years. This is their forever home where they plan to raise their children, pictured here. So we actually should update this. It's over 4 years now that we've been trying to get this backyard cottage done. Part of the reason why, or I should say what they're using the space for, originally there was a barn on the property that their original plan was to rehab that existing barn as sort of play space for their family. So it's not a rental unit, it's not a commercial venture or anything like that. It's hangout space for their family and recreation space for their family. So we started off with, this is the existing conditions if you drive by the house now. Previously, there was a barn in the backyard that we went through the demolition process through the city and demolished the barn. Our original intention was to hold on to it, but structurally it was very, very precarious. You could almost see it sort of deteriorating. So this was the barn. So we ended up having to take it down. We went through that whole process. That was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And then submitted for a backyard cottage to replace the barn under the old zoning, but missed the deadline by a hair. So had to resubmit under the new zoning. Here you can see where the barn was. This is still the condition of the property and has been for a year and a half now. You know, what we want to put back is something a lot nicer than either what was there or the hole in the ground that's currently there. So, you know, here's some inspiration images for the exterior. Interior, it's going to be really cool. Climbing space, space for kids, meditation space. So family hangout. Landscape, we have the landscape architect. I think Elise is here. Hopefully I can't see who's here and who's not. So I believe she's on the call as well. So if we have questions, if you guys have questions about the landscape, we have our landscape architect here as well. To give a little bit of context, this is the site vicinity here. So this is just a quick model. So we're not painting the whole thing yellow. So just to say that. This is the house and this is the location of the backyard cottage. You can see, so this is with all the stuff, and then this is sort of cleared away. In comparison, you can see this was the original barn location. It would not have been conforming under the new zoning under a variety of metrics. So our new structure does conform in terms of setbacks and size and all that. So it's just helpful also to see what was there. So some really quick massing renderings explaining sort of how this looks from the street. These were the images that we shared with the neighbors to make sure that they could see what we were up to and what things would look like from their perspective. So here you can see the sort of comparison between the yellow being the new proposed backyard cottage and the blue being the previous barn. So the previous barn was a lot larger. Just another quick view, same concept. You can see what we're dealing with. This is from the rear, from the backyard of the sort of the backyard neighbors. What their view was with the blue and will be with the yellow. Another sort of interesting thing to consider is that in section, the barn is a lot smaller. And again, that's because we are conforming with the new zoning requirements for height, which obviously the old barn did not comply with. Drawings, this is my cue to skip over to the drawing set. This is our submitted, this is what was included in our most recent submission to staff. And this is mostly here for our reference. So we have our green score, which is in compliance. We have our site strategy here is basically we're removing paving. Right now, the pavement goes all the way back to the previous barn. So it's almost like a triple spot. We're removing it, so it's only 1.5 or 2 spots, and incorporating a play lawn and an outdoor eating spot and all of that. And then in terms of how the building is, how the building is laid out, actually we could go to this. It's basically a split level in section where you enter at grade to a very small landing and then go down into the space. That is because we are building a climbing wall that we need height. So we are using the existing sort of hole created by the barn's foundation. And then there's a small loft that's overlooking the climbing space. So that's how it works in plan and section. There's a lot going on here, but so we can go further into depth on that if that's helpful. And then elevations, these were prepared for the UDC and also for neighborhood meetings to help people understand sort of the shape and size of the project. So it's modest, it's a little gable with a small shed dormer on the one side. We have these tall windows because that's where the climbing wall is. And that's pretty much it. So I wanted to fly through and then we can backtrack if you guys have questions.
Great, thank you very much.
Sure.
So is there anyone here in the audience that came out tonight that would like to speak or have questions for or against this project? Charlotte?
So for anyone in the audience who wishes to give public comments on this project, please raise your hand using the little button that looks like a hand, and that will let us know that you want to speak and we can unmute you. Madam Chair, I am not seeing anyone with their hand raised.
Okay. All righty. So we'll close the public portion of 59 Albion Street and open it to the board for their considerations and questions and comments. Anybody want to start? Raise your hand, please. Seeing none, that tells me everybody's happy with everything. Ann Brockelman?
Just have a few questions clarifying. One is maybe for staff, since we're not quite familiar with this, the backyard cottage type yet, and it is very exciting to see one finally. The maximum permitted floor plate, how is that calculated? Because your report it says it exceeds, but yet the inspector said it didn't. So I was curious about that.
So ISD has reviewed this project specifically and the floor plans for this project and has determined that it does not exceed the maximum permitted for floor plate based on the interaction of a number of definitions. I don't think I can satisfactorily explain how they came to that conclusion, but that is their conclusion, and they have reviewed this project in particular on that question.
But Charlotte, can you back up and explain how the maximum floor plate is calculated, just to educate me, us, and the public for a backyard cottage?
I can certainly provide the definition of floor plate, but how that definition has been applied here, I will defer to the applicant on that. I know they've met with ISD and ISD has given them a more in-depth explanation than I've heard of how the floor plate has been interpreted in this situation.
So I mean, I think there's two questions. One is how ISD said it's fine, it doesn't exceed, but I'm just wondering, in general, is it setback determined? What is, if one wanted to build a backyard cottage, what is the maximum permitted? How do you find that out?
So if one wanted to, generally speaking, for backyard cottages writ large, the maximum floor plate is, I believe, 576 square feet. There's a specific dimension in the dimensional tables for backyard cottages that limits the maximum floor plate for that building type.
Okay, so
and
it's
I believe it is 576.
So it's not in proportion to the site or setback or
No.
the existing house.
No.
It's just given. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Excuse us, we're still learning about this as well. So it's 500 something. Okay, 576. So that number applies everywhere, not just to this project.
Yes, there are lot standards, lot width and lot depth standards that a property has to meet in order to be eligible to have a backyard cottage be built on it. But provided that those standards are met, the floor plate is the same regardless of how large the lot is.
Okay, and then my second question is on the next page. Page 3 is the separation is supposed to be 10 feet. So it sounds like the building official said the stairs, I'm fine to disregard the stairs. They don't count within that. The stairs can encroach within that 10 feet.
That is correct. That is the building official's interpretation on the facts of this case.
Okay, I think that was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Anyone else? No? So the board, you're all set with the concerns about the required considerations in the
Madam
facts and findings of the staff report?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
it looks like
Catherine.
Anne, I apologize. It looks like Anne may be raising her hand.
Thank you, Catherine. Ann Fullerton.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I just wanted to understand from Marilyn a little bit more about the north-facing elevation in the shear wall. Do you have the rendered model view? The
Yeah.
sort of lightly rendered model view? So can you tell us a little bit more about what that shear wall is going to be facing? Because it's a lot of concrete to be next door to.
Yeah, so that is facing the backyard, so we can see on the map. Sorry, this, let me get back up here. So it's facing these houses back here.
And I know your public meetings went pretty well. In fact, the notes were completely minimal, meaning people were very happy. Were the neighbors, backyard neighbors that would face immediately on your north side, were they in attendance?
They were not in attendance. They were notified. And I believe I'd have to defer to the owner who's on the call as to who we had letters of support from. I'm fairly certain we had letters of support from several of those folks, but I'm not sure. Kate, are you there? Could you chime in? We might have to make you up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so the neighbor, let's see. I don't know how well you can see me. I'm a little ragged. But the actually both of those properties behind us are being sold to a developer. One's in the process of historic demolition at this particular moment. So I will just be honest about that. They both expressed verbal support to us along this entire journey that we've been on, but ultimately they don't really care. So
And is there a reason that you guys chose to do a cementitious shear wall instead of a wood frame shear wall?
Yes, there is. So it was originally planned as wood. We are doing an actual climbing set of climbing walls that are attached to that wall. And the shear forces that are exerted are such that we would need these massive beams, and our best option was concrete as we looked at whether to switch to, I mean, wood would have just been so giant, and steel was getting too complicated, especially sort of in that back area. So that's why we went with concrete. I was blown away by the forces that are exerted by those climbing walls. And we have a structural engineer who did that with us, so that wasn't just me getting blown away.
I mean, the logic behind it makes sense. I would like to understand if there's a way we can soften it just for your neighbors. I know that your current backyard neighbor is going to evolve, but again, it's a lot of concrete to live next door to. So I'm wondering if you guys would be open to either trellising it or and it's north facing, so that might not be the right solution for plantings, or potentially putting battens and siding on the concrete face.
Sure. I mean, we're open to all of those ideas and suggestions. Just as a procedural thing, we had this exact set of questions when we met with the UDC. And just for what it's worth, since we're the first one to go through this, UDC only has jurisdiction to discuss the facade parallel with the street. So when they started talking about our back facade, we soon all realized that they actually couldn't say anything about that back facade. So that's what it says right now. That's sort of the rules right now. So so yes, of course, we're willing to talk about it. And also we went all the way through this whole process with them sort of saying that we didn't have to, because, or they couldn't say anything. So this might be another thing that has to be sorted out in this process.
I guess the other thing, if I could add something, and this is Kate, the homeowner, if you need to know, is that if that property is demolished, we don't know where the new property is going to go, or whether there will be any windows on that facade close to it. Like, we don't have new plans for what would go on that lot. So, I mean, I would certainly say that I would be open to any suggestions. But at the same time, if they're going to put a building at the setback right up against our building that doesn't have any windows, did we just spend a lot of money doing something? It's sort of an if and chicken and egg thing.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to that. And you're right. You don't know what that will evolve into. If it becomes a larger project that pushes zoning limits, certainly you'll have the opportunity to share your thoughts with them, just as they would have had their opportunity to share their thoughts with you. And I guess my thought behind this is, you guys have gone far and above to be good neighbors, and this seems like one spot where maybe that wasn't completely wrapped up. And because I think otherwise, like, your neighbors are thrilled with the project. I think in general the project scale looks great, and I can see why your neighbors are excited about it. It just seems like that one piece feels pretty industrial from the exterior. And if there's a way that we can make it feel a bit more residential from the exterior, it would be more palatable long term.
Thank
I
you,
can
Ann.
understand that.
Charlotte, let me ask a question where this is like the first case and stuff. Where does this go from us?
You are the last step. Next place will be building permit.
Okay, all right. That's what I want to make sure. So what is the pleasure of the board on that comment from Ann Fullerton to the applicant? Is it something you'd want to pursue? Or are you happy with the reasoning from the applicant, Mrs. St. Laurent? Does somebody want to add to this? Catherine Garavaglia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This backyard cottage seems to be pretty much in compliance with what was intended under the code. Nobody has seemed to have objected to the design. Frankly, I think the rock climbing wall sounds pretty cool and a great addition to have in the neighborhood. We don't have a developer who's just trying to add on things here. I think it's a really great plan.
Okay. And Elaine, did you have your hand up?
I did. I enjoyed hearing the comments from Anne. And if there's any way, I don't know if there's any kind of plantings that could be put back there. I know ivy does so well on walls, does well in the shade. As we look at all the many buildings at Harvard, ivy is climbing everywhere. And I just didn't know if something like that could be planted back there to cover up that wall.
And soften it. Ann Fullerton, you mentioned about north side. Would the ivy work over there?
I'm not a planting expert. So I know it's north facing, and so it gets a low level of light consistently throughout the day. I'm sure Elaine has better understanding of what might, but even more specific to that, if that is the direction that we would like the applicant to pursue, we could have them have their professional landscape team recommend a planting.
Great. Marilyn?
Yeah, so I'm actually getting texts from the landscape architect who's on the call. So she's saying that we do have space to plant. We have 3 feet of space, but that it's going to be really hard to get stuff to grow because it's the north side. Then she says, how do I raise my hand? So we might want to, you can let her speak for herself.
If I may interject, she is actually already a panelist. So Elise,
sweet.
if you unmute yourself.
Oh, okay, great.
I can't do it for you, but I'm going to send you a request to show your camera. So that should come up on your screen. There you go. Now we can
I just
hear
want to say,
Thank you.
From an architectural standpoint, that unfortunately ivy is pretty terrible for the construction. So it kind of would degrade the building pretty severely. So even though it's beautiful from an architectural standpoint, it probably isn't our best bet for green screening, if that's something that we're looking to pursue. And now I'll let Elise jump in and say smart
Let
green.
me speak up. Who was just speaking?
That, sorry, that was Marilyn, the architect.
Marilyn. Okay. Don't forget, you guys, as you jump in, you have to identify yourself so that when they transcribe this, we can get everybody on board. So Elise, you're the landscape person?
I am, yes, I'm a landscape architect.
So would you identify who you are and where you come from and then talk to us?
My name is Elise Nash. I'm a landscape architect working on the North Shore and on this project. Yeah, I was expressing my concern to Marilyn about ivy in particular because it does tend to degrade concrete. So I think that would not be a great choice. We can certainly look into what we might be able to put back there. It is a challenging condition, seeing that it's a north slope, and especially if a developer does plant something, or does put a building there, that's going to make it even more narrow and shady. So we can certainly, I'm happy to look into what some options might be, but realistically, that's a challenging spot to plant.
Is that, to get back to Marilyn, is that going to be, what color is the concrete going to be back there?
This is Marilyn responding. It's just concrete, so it's just
Right. And what's the
concrete
rest of
color.
the building going to be? What's the color scheme, rest of the building? Because the front house is barn red, right? Burgundy?
That's right. This is Marilyn again. We haven't decided on final colors, and that was not necessarily part of what we had to prepare. But in our inspiration images, I'll just share, we're looking at sort of darker colors and natural colors, and sort of in the color palette that I'm showing you here.
Is there, do they color concrete?
Yes, that is possible. I guess from an aesthetic standpoint, again, I would just say that we've been through the Urban Design Commission review process, and I'm sort of like, well, we sort of went through that, so I would hesitate to, I guess, and I would also, in terms of how the material would look, I think colored concrete wouldn't quite be the look that we're hoping to go for here.
Madam Chair,
Okay.
if I may interject.
Who's
This is
that?
Charlotte speaking.
Yes, Charlotte?
I just wanted to provide some additional context since this is the first backyard cottage, and backyard cottages have some different standards and requirements than properties in other districts. So the first one is there is a building separation requirement in the NR district that requires a minimum of 10 feet between different buildings. So since this backyard cottage is a building and will be built, if a developer were to build something on the lot that this shares a rear lot line with, the principal building will have to be at least 20 feet from the rear lot line unless a variance is given. And the backyard cottage, if one is possible on that lot, and if they choose to propose one, will need to be at least 10 feet from this structure. So there will be at least 10 feet between this structure and any other structure built on those rear lots. The second thing that I just wanted to provide context on, because I think this is the second project in total that you guys have seen that is a site plan approval, is that the Urban Design Commission really is focused on how proposals will impact the public realm. And so it is not part of their purview to consider what the rear of the building looks like, but that is very much within the board's purview. The UDC also only makes recommendations. So while the UDC did recommend that this project go forward with this design, if this board wants any changes like softening of the rear concrete wall, that is completely within this board's purview and does not require that this applicant repeat any additional steps. That is just a discussion between this applicant and the board.
Okay.
That is the contextual comments that I wanted to provide. But if there are any other questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's why I was asking where do they go from here? That's why I was saying that. Mr. Safdie, you had your hand up 1 minute, Ann. And Ann Fullerton and then Elaine. Go ahead, Josh.
I was actually going to ask for some clarification that Charlotte provided. So
Okay.
So I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Elaine or Ann, who wants to go first, raise your hand. Okay, Ann Fullerton.
Yes. So Marilyn, it sounds like Marilyn and Kate. It sounds like it's not entirely a surprise that we might have brought this topic up. So, and that you guys had started thinking a little bit about solutions. Are there solutions that you came to that would have been palatable?
Yes,
Marilyn?
This is Marilyn speaking. We would be happy to extend the siding down. I mean, I think that would, I'm texting with Elise a little bit right now, that the planting is probably not going to be super successful in that area. So if the goal is to soften it for the neighbors, then that probably won't achieve that goal, as well as extending the siding down. That is certainly something that we could fairly easily do from a technical perspective. Obviously, Kate and Daryl and I haven't spoken about that, but I know that along this whole process, they've been supportive of, you know, being good neighbors and all that kind of stuff. So I think that would be a fairly easy, and from a design perspective, I think would maintain the integrity of what we're up to without getting into solutions that would be too difficult.
Or unique to the design that you've already established.
Yep, exactly.
I would support that change.
Could you?
Marilyn, could you
flip
scroll?
this? Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to see the back of the building, please. Oh, I see. All right. And what is this? What are these planks? Are they hardy plank?
Yes, this is
Those are
Marilyn again.
good.
Yep, Hardy.
Hardy. Okay. All right. So what are we saying? That the board would like, 1 minute, Elaine, I just want to double check one thing before we go further. So you're saying that you would consider putting that hardy plank all the way down the back for aesthetics?
Yes,
Marilyn, Kate?
Yeah, this is
Marilyn?
Marilyn again. I would vote for maybe not continuing it all the way down to the bottom, but continuing it so that it connects. I wish I could sketch, but sort of along this line, if you can see my mouse, where,
Okay.
because we have some exposed foundation where we would normally see exposed foundation, and I would say that it would make the most sense to continue it across there aesthetically to the sort of where my pointer is.
Okay. Elaine Severino?
Yeah, I would support that also. It definitely should be something to soften it. I'm a little saddened that the Urban Design Committee can pay attention to the front and the left and the right, but kind of ignores the rear. And certainly we know, living in Somerville, our properties butt up to everybody, left, right, and center. So we do have people in the rear that always need to be considered. I am in support of extending the hardy plank down. I guess my other thought was, and I know some can be very garish, but I have seen some lovely softened murals done on buildings. I've also seen some murals on buildings that are quite garish, would jump right off and scare you half to death. I just didn't know if that could also be another softening condition, some sort of, I think one of the very successful murals in the Porter Square area is on Davenport Street, the back side of the all the buildings in the Porter Square Shopping Center, where they have incorporated windows that were absolutely falling apart, a terrible eyesore back there, until they did a beautiful, beautiful mural incorporating terrible things that looked awful back there. And there are people now looking out of those windows that were horrifying. And it's a very beautiful thing to look at. And I don't think it jumps off the wall. So it took a very ugly, nasty area, and they did a beautiful mural. So I know some people, there are some people in the world that can do beautiful things on the back. And to get rid of this cement, this is not good, all this cement.
Me personally, I wouldn't expect that of the applicant. It's a personal home. It's not a commercial area, and it's not facing a commercial lot. But I like the idea of the hardy plank, bringing it down, and it matches the rest of the building all the way around. And coming down to a certain area, like you said, there is exposed foundation on other parts. So do we want to go for Josh?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I have to have to express a different opinion. I don't know that basically blank wall of hardy plank is going to be any friendlier or softer, or however we want to describe it, than an elevation that at least has a change in material. I can imagine that the design thinking behind this is we have this cool climbing wall in what otherwise seems like a pretty small backyard cottage, and it's kind of an interesting thing the way that the architects are playing with the bottom of the foundation in order to create that big space in a small space. And I think that this concrete wall sort of reflects that by expressing it on the outside. So that's how I feel personally. But for me, the bigger issue is more just procedural. I don't feel like it's fair to the applicant or architect to design by committee on the fly and have them have to be bound to it, by sort of throwing ideas at them and saying, well, what do you think about this and what do you think about that, and then conditioning it. I think if we felt strongly that the rear elevation needed to be softened somehow, however you interpret that, then I would want the design team, architect and landscape architect, with the homeowner to think about ways that they can do that and then come back to us, right? Yeah. But then my question is, do we all feel strongly enough that we want to extend this 1.5-year journey that the applicant described, in order to do that? So I just feel like, for me personally, I'm fine with it the way it is. I do think there are ways that you could soften concrete too, right? By just using, patterns from formwork or other little things just to break up a monotonous wall. And we don't even know if that's what it really is. But for me, the bigger picture is, if we as a board want to make the applicant come back with a new design for the rear, I'm not comfortable with designing it for them by committee on the fly and then sort of sticking them with it.
Ann Fullerton? Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I would, I guess I would be inclined to ask the applicant team if they would prefer to make a proposed change or potentially have to come back based on a vote.
Marilyn?
This is Marilyn again. So this process has been over 4.5 years. We have been asked to come back and come back and come back over and over and over. And I understand that nobody can, the zoning change happened when it happened, we're here, we're the first one, so we had to go through this huge thing. So we will come back if that's what is needed. However, I just want to underline, Josh, you read our intent exactly. So that, we didn't just leave it as a blank wall because we couldn't think of anything. That is an expression of what's going on the interior, and that we can't put a window there. We can't. So that way, by keeping that line there, we show why there are no windows instead of a blank line of hardy. I appreciate as an architect having the opportunity to not design by committee. I agree with that. So if that means that we have to come back, we've gone through it this long, we'll keep going. At the same time, if we're just coming back to sort of say, well, what's a softer approach? We can't put windows there. There's a climbing wall. So there's not really a whole lot we can do. And that's not from unwillingness to try. We've designed and redesigned this thing many, many, many times. So yeah, that's what I have to say.
Okay. Catherine Garavaglia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to support Josh's comments. I'm not an architect. I like the division that's here. I know maybe it's a different aesthetic. I don't know how much the aesthetic is in our purview. Charlotte has said it is. but there are lots of different types of design out there and people appreciate different things. This is, again, it's a residential homeowner. This is not a developer. I don't know how much of an extra hardship and expense we'd be putting on them, asking them to go back and redesign for an aesthetic reason that we don't necessarily all agree on, but maybe don't find that objectionable. I think hardy siding might be extremely expensive, and I kind of like it the way it is.
Okay, thank you. Ann Brockelman.
Madam Chair, my weighing in is to say that I'm not interested in weighing in on what the back looks like. I mean, I think I appreciate everyone's discussion, but it doesn't matter to me. I look forward to seeing all various aesthetics and styles of backyard cottages, and I think that's an exciting thing. I do have a few other questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
And it's maybe more procedural or jurisdictional, again, because you guys are the guinea pigs. The 3-foot setback that's required for backyard cottage from the property line, because it was discussed, Charlotte, you had said that it would never be more than 10 feet. So then is it, if someone were to put, the rear butter were to put a backyard cottage, would it be 3 feet or would they have to be 7? Or is it 3 feet from principal structure?
So that is a question that I've had and that has not yet occurred, since this is, I think, one of 4 backyard cottages on the approximately 18,000 lots in the city. If I am speculating, and this is speculating, I think there may be a certain amount of first come, first serve when it comes to backyard cottages.
That's my question.
Yeah, I think there may be a certain amount of first come, first serve. That said, not every lot is eligible to have a backyard cottage simply because it is in the NR district. So this may be a moot point because I don't know what the dimensions of those abutting lots are. They may be too narrow, too shallow to even be eligible for a backyard cottage should they want to do one. So I think there are a lot of contingencies that would have to work out perfectly for there to be a possibility, or for it to be a concern of another backyard cottage being right next to this one.
Okay. I have 2 more issues, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, I just realized the 576 square foot is 24 by 24. So it seems like that was set by, a backyard cottage. It seems 24 by 24 feet is a good size and dimension. And then the staff report says, again, just trying to understand procedurally or what's within our purview, that the building official is required to interpret portions of the ordinance. So that's not us. Because sometimes we argue all night over 2 feet, and this is a 26 by 24 foot, floor plan. And I'm willing to say, okay, if that's under the building official's purview, that's fine. But are we making a critical decision by allowing 2 feet when sometimes that's a huge variance, which goes on all night? You know how those things work. I just want to make sure I understand.
So the building official is tasked with interpreting the ordinance. There is then a mechanism of, if anyone were to disagree with the building official's interpretation, they can file an administrative appeal, and the board can then determine whether or not the building official has made an error. So there is this kind of, it's not a tension, but there is this like dual responsibility for interpreting the ordinance of, it is typically the building official, but if there's a question, it becomes the zoning boards. I will say that because the building official has interpreted it to be conforming, it would not require a hardship variance if the board, it would not require a hardship variance if the board decides that the existing, or that the structure as proposed is larger than what they're comfortable with, and think that that conditioning it to be smaller would mitigate impacts on the neighborhood. The board could condition that. I don't know if the board wants to condition that. That would be something for you to choose. But that could be a condition on a case-by-case basis. Broadly speaking, the zoning ordinance or the building official interprets it and has found this to be conforming.
Okay, because the other way that I can see this happening is the code suggests 24 by 24, right? The homeowner wants, for various reasons, to make it 26 by 24, so they come to us to ask for the 2 extra feet. That's not the case here, and in the future backyard cottages, you don't see that as the process. It would go, we're only doing site plan review, which does not include the footprint.
So Marilyn, can you go to the floor plan that shows where you understand the floor plate to be? I think it's on your plans, not your presentation.
Yeah.
Or that slide.
This is Marilyn. I can also help whenever it's the right moment, because we're using the words story, floor plate, and footprint interchangeably, potentially, and they are not interchangeable in the code. And that's how we end up with this weird 24 by 24 is not a footprint. It's a floor plate. And so that's why we sought that clarification, is because it was unclear whether it was a floor plate or a footprint. And it is pretty clearly a floor plate, and I can get into how that got interpreted here. So that's the nuts and bolts of this, which is separate than the procedural question you're asking, which I also appreciate as an architect in Somerville. So anyway.
That's very helpful. So the floor plate comes from the code. That's a technical term. Okay, no, thank you. I mean, again, you guys are our guinea pigs. We're all just trying to learn.
If the board wishes, I can.
So you've satisfied the building inspectors, officials reading, or you are proposing that your floor plate is 24 by 24, thus complies. Okay, because it sounds very vague in the staff report.
Yeah, it's definitely, this is Marilyn again, it's definitely a deep read of the code, because we could not figure out what it was. So, but yes, footprint is not the same thing as floor plate, and that's and basement does not count as floor plate. So, and what counts as floor plate is habitable space, and that's the key. So if you look at our plan and you don't read it as a split level, then you say, well, look, it's 24 by 26, but it's not 24 by 26 of habitable space. And that's where that distinction comes in.
Is it sort of net to gross relationship?
No, it's a definition of what counts as habitable space. So for example, and it's by floor. So technically we are showing 160 square feet, and 576 is the max. So by the book, we're showing 160 square feet in a 24 by 26 footprint, which is kind of mind blowing. But according to the definitions laid out in the ordinance, that's how it plays out.
That's
so
very helpful.
The building official, when we talked about it, said that airspace is not habitable if you can't walk on it, which makes sense to us. So
thank you.
Okay.
And
Thank
then
you.
my final comment, Madam Chair. I just want to I hope we agree that the use is not relevant. You know, it's whether it's living space, climbing, or residential unit, they're all permitted. And you know, I think it's easy to have the first backyard cottage not be a residential unit because it's less controversial. But I just want to make sure that I'm disregarding that portion of the narrative, or the applicant's narrative, because the goal of Somerville and to have these backyard cottages is to increase dwelling, increase density, and this could be turned into a residence dwelling unit if the it was zoned, right? This is zoned for 3 units, I think. And I am in support of that. I just want to be clear, and that's, you know, that is the philosophy behind the backyard cottage, is to increase density.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. All right, so Elaine and Ann, it sounds like the board wants to move forward. They don't want to have the applicant come back with a new design. And I always say it's the pleasure of the board. Is this going forward with the concrete the way it is? Am I understanding that from everybody? You know, Josh and Ian and Catherine and even myself at this point, I think we should let them go what they want to do. I'm big on that. So is Elaine and Ian, does this a deal breaker for you on making a vote on this tonight?
I thought they were going to take a look at different things that they could do to soften.
Well, Josh and Ian and I and Catherine decided that we don't want to make them do that. We feel with all that they've gone, am I understanding you folks correctly? Yeah. We don't want to do that. We want to let them walk out tonight with a successful vote to go forward. And like you said, if they can get some plantings in the future, they'll absolutely work on that. Like they said, they don't know who's going to be coming in and what they're going to be building behind there. Ian Fullerton.
Madam Chair, thank you. I would say that considering they've had 2 very open discussions with their neighbors and there have not been any public comments that align with the issue that I raised, that I would support moving forward with a vote tonight.
All right, thank you. And I appreciate your interest and your angle at looking at that. That's what we want. We've got to, you know, go forward and keep looking at things and make them the best project they can be for everybody concerned, the homeowner as well as the neighborhood. So, Elaine, are you willing to go forward?
Yes.
Okay. The only comment I'd like to make to the applicant and the architect and the homeowner is to walk away from this and take the suggestion that if you can soften that up with landscaping come springtime or whenever you're starting to do all your building and stuff, it would be a good neighbor policy to do something like that, to make it even more attractive than you've already picked already. So if that's something you can do with your footage you have back down out there and plant something nice to let it grow up a little bit, even if it's a little bit, you know, like 3/4 halfway up, because you've got your other slats on the top, you've got your window, you've got other things of interest on the back wall, and that would break it up even better, make it more attractive. So I guess that's, you know, that's it. We've got the staff recommendations and conditions. You're all happy with those. You've made your comment about the required considerations with the staff report, and I like everybody's participation. And I see that there's no other additional comments at this time. So I guess what I'd like to do is have our clerk make a motion. Josh?
I'm working on it.
All right, take your time. We're having technical issues here.
So, Madam Chair, if I'm understanding from our crib sheet here, we should also be clear whether we would like to apply the permit conditions included on page 4 of the staff report.
Right, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. In that case,
If I may quickly, just as a
please.
reminder, since this is site plan approval, and that is less common, for site plan approval, staff also provides some optional findings that the board might choose to adopt or not adopt. So if you could include whether you are choosing to adopt those findings in your motion as well, that would be perfect and alleviate the need to identify why you have approved the project once you've made the vote.
Great. Okay, so in the matter of 59 Albion Street, CBA case number PNZ 20-010, I make a motion that we approve with conditions the applicant's request to establish a backyard cottage in our district through a site plan approval. Having considered public testimony for which there was none, although there were public meetings, review of materials and deliberation, I move that we approve it, incorporating the conditions found on page 4 of the staff report and adopting the findings on pages 3 and 4 that the staff report provides for us.
And that's the staff report of November the 3rd, 2021.
Yes, thank you.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have, who's that? Thank you, Catherine Garabet. Okay. I don't, is this a technicality where she's an alternate and she's not voting? Can she second it?
Yes, anyone on the board can second it.
Awesome, thank you. I just want to make sure.
Her vote just doesn't count.
All right,
we
good. Thank you,
appreciate her vote.
Catherine. That a girl. Okay, so seconded by Catherine. All in favor, please say yes when I go around. Elaine Severino,
Yes.
Ann Fullerton,
Yes.
Ann Brockelman,
Yes.
Josh Safdie,
Yes.
and Susan Fontano, yes. Let the record show it was 5 board members voting, all in the affirmative, and it carried. Good luck, you guys.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience in working with us.
Thank you.
All righty. So next on the agenda is 483 Broadway. And Mr. Safdie, this is new as well tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is 483 Broadway, case number PNZ 21-012. Tavis Babbitt seeks a variance from the minimum number of stories in the mid-rise 4 district.
Hello.
Give me one moment. Oh, Tavis, I'm going to make the first instance of you that I saw unmuted. Can you hear us? Okay.
There we go.
Try again.
Now you can hear me.
Great.
If you'd like, I can turn my camera on, or you can do that.
Sorry, I made him a presenter so that he can turn his camera on. He'll come back on in a minute. Okay, Tavis, you should be able to turn your camera on now.
All right, let me check that out. Oh, it says I'd have to quit and reopen, so I guess I won't be doing that tonight. My apologies.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And I think the owner is on as well, John Wood, who would just like to speak briefly as well before we get into some of the details.
And
could you,
Mr. Babbitt, what is your role in this?
I'm a designer. I work with Rise Architecture, and so I'll be presenting the plans in that for that part of it.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Mr. Wood?
This is Charlotte speaking. I don't see a Mr. Wood in our attendee list. If Mr. Wood could raise his hand to let me know who that is. I've unmuted a second instance of Tavis. Is that
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Wood,
believe so.
maybe?
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, hello all. This is John Wood. I am the owner of Woody's Liquors at 523 currently Broadway, Somerville. I've been there for almost 32 years, and I'm hoping that we can get this project moving along to move up the street, on the same side of the street that where I've been, like I said, for almost 32 years. And I'm hoping tonight we can get some clarity and move forward, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Babbitt, would you like to make your presentation, please?
Yes, we, as you have probably seen already, the property is mostly in Medford, and so we were proposing a addition to the existing structure. That's a single story right now, and a non-conforming structure as well in Medford. And we wanted to make more use of the site that's available. As you've seen in the existing conditions of the site, it's in disrepair and needs a lot of work. So the particular situation that we have is somewhat unique because it's mostly in Medford, and we wanted to comply with the Medford zoning as much as possible. In Medford, the zone is a residential, two-story limit, and the neighborhood behind it is also residential. There's houses there, and so we wanted to keep the building and overall in the same size, shape, kind of similar to what's in keeping with the neighborhood. And so when we get into the Somerville portion, obviously that's a different zone and they have different regulations. That's a MR4, which has a minimum of 3 stories. And so we have this confrontation between the two zones as just a factor of the site and the nature of what we have to do to work with here. So our goal was to try and kind of marry the two, but also provide some space that the owner could use and fix the building and make it look much better, much more presentable, and something that's more in keeping with the neighborhood. So right now we realized that there was some sort of issue with the advertising. So there's 2 elements to this. But what was advertised was simply for the number of stories. However, there's also a height issue with the first floor height requirement as part of our zone. So I'm not sure if we're able to consider that tonight or not. We'd like to talk about whatever you feel comfortable going with, but at the moment, really, we have 2 issues that we need to try to address. I don't know if we can do it all tonight, that's all.
Okay. I would like to invite Mrs. White. This is your case tonight. You're going to work with us on this?
Correct, Madam Chair.
Sarah, yeah. Can you fill in some of these blanks so we don't waste any more time tonight on things that we can't do tonight, or how we should go forward to get this going? Because we've already inquired. Well, you go ahead, you speak, because I know you already checked in with Medford and all that stuff. So go ahead. Give us some knowledge here.
Sure. So let me try and summarize. So the applicant, Mr. Babbitt is correct. The majority, this is a property that is split. The boundary line for Somerville and Medford run through this property. The part of the property that's closest to Broadway is on the Somerville side. The existing building is completely within the Medford side at this point. The applicant has already gone to the Medford zoning board. I think it was July. Tavis, is that correct?
Yes.
Let me just pull up
July.
the finding. I think that's right.
So in July, for zoning relief that they needed on the Medford side, the relief was granted, but Medford has not yet written up and filed the decision from that zoning case. And I know that Ms. Fullerton asked if that decision were available, and it is not. I did contact the Medford planning office, and when I spoke to them in late August, early September, it wasn't ready, and it's still not ready. So I'm not able to provide that to you. They will send it to me as soon as it's done. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
just
John,
one
let me just
update.
finish up here for a second.
Sorry, yeah. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So that's where we are with like the Medford zoning decision that Ms. Fullerton was looking for. Now, Madam Chair, yes?
Sarah, when you said they went to Medford in July for relief and it was granted, is that what you
Correct.
said?
That is correct.
What is that? What did they approve?
That's what I don't
Today.
know because we don't have the decision. However, I would ask if Mr. Wood or Mr. Babbitt could discuss.
Mhm.
If,
Yeah.
I
Because
do
this is
have
two-story on that side.
I do have the document that was sent yesterday from them. They haven't all signed it, the
Who's
document, but
speaking?
this is what was, sorry, this is
Tavis.
Babbitt,
Thank you.
Mr. Babbitt. Yep. And they sent the paperwork that's now being circulated to be signed. They were hoping to have it for us prior to the meeting today, but that wasn't completely circulated. So I have the document completed from them in front of me. And so I
And
don't
what
know.
is it they approved? Did they approve 3 stories?
2 stories as presented per the plans that
Oh,
you have in front of you as well. So
okay.
the plans that we submitted to Somerville are identical in form, aside from one change to the awning, I believe, and maybe some of the windows on the front to
Okay.
fit more with Somerville's requirements.
So then, Sarah,
Yes.
is it, Mr. Babbitt, 1 second. So they approved it 2 stories. What are the issues that was coming up with us is that we want 3, but then the floor height was off.
That's
with
correct.
Medford. Okay, go
That's
ahead.
correct. The portion of this property that's in the Somerville city, behind the Somerville city line, is in the MR4 zoning district. And so in the MR4 zoning district, we allow a maximum of 4 stories, but require a minimum of 3 to be built. So you don't have to build 4, but you have to build 3. And the applicant would like to construct only 2 stories, so that building on the Somerville side, because he wants to push the addition into the Somerville side, so that will match the level of the building on the Medford side, right? If Medford is allowing up to 2 stories, he would like the 2 sections to match and not have a 3-story along Broadway dropping down to 2 stories on Medford.
Yes.
So in addition to,
Why not? We do a lot of buildings that we drop them off, or we come in and come up. Why wouldn't we do that there?
It
I
can
would
be
ask
a
if the
10-foot.
applicant could address that.
Yeah. Yeah,
What did you
it'd
say,
be
Sarah?
about 10. This is Tavis Babbitt speaking. Again, it'd be about a 10 to 10.5 foot wide section. And so
Yeah.
that's pretty odd to extend up, you know.
Yeah.
It's only
in that
500
case. And
feet.
it would have to be, yeah, it would have to be a flat roof. And
Okay.
I did think about maybe transitioning that to look more like a residential roof, but because it has to be a flat roof in Somerville, it didn't really work with the 2.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. I'm sorry, I apologize, Sarah. Just think you might as well straighten it out as we're going instead of going back and forth.
And trying to
Go
remember
ahead.
what we just said. Right, exactly. No, that's
Yeah.
totally fine. And so that's what the legal ad referred to, which was the number of stories that they were looking for relief from. And so, but what is addressed in the staff report is that they are also looking for relief for the story height, right? That's not in the legal ad, but they are also looking for relief from the story height. And so we require in an MR4 zone on the first story a 14-foot height for the first story. And they're proposing 9 feet 10 because that matches what they have on the Medford side. So if they were to build even on the interior and just try to fake it on the front, an interior of a 14-foot ceiling height on the interior, that would still only leave them with 5 feet of a quote unquote second floor. So the interior wouldn't work without the actual building being higher. So they're asking for relief to provide a shorter first story floor to ceiling height as well.
That's a good summary.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
And that's
thank
the
you.
crux. Yep.
All right. So, is there anyone here from the public that would like to weigh in? I have some questions, people in the neighborhood or abutters, anything?
This is
Charlotte?
Charlotte speaking. There are only 3 people in the audience and one of them is the applicant. So I'm going to ask if anyone has any public comment on this case. And I'm going to give it a few seconds with, again, if you want to make a comment, please raise your hand. But none
Well,
of the
yeah.
2 individuals who are not the applicant have raised their hands.
Okay. So I do want to mention while we're going there is that we got a letter from the Ward 5 City Councilor, Mark Niedergang. You all had it in your packets, I hope, or, you know, online here. And he really speaks to the sentiment of the, how it has been an eyesore for so long. It's too bad they're crossed between 2 cities like this. And he speaks to the affirmative, he supports it. So that's it for the record. So you're saying, no, there's nobody from the public here tonight. So we'll close the public portion. Before we go to our board for their questions and what have you, if you explained as much as you want to explain right now, Mr. Babbitt,
I believe
that's
you
okay?
understand the whole situation. Yeah, and
You-
happy to take any questions.
Awesome, thank you. So let's, it's the pleasure of the board. Would you raise your hand if you have some questions or comments or how you want us, we're gonna go forward with this. Ann Fullerton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a clarification for Mr. White. So because it was advertised publicly as a review for the overall building height, so the 2-story accommodation, and not specifically for the first floor, floor to floor, is that out of the purview for tonight's discussion? I just want to understand clearly.
Yeah, you can certainly discuss it. And so I gave the applicant 3 options, right? They could just postpone, right? And until December, they could come forward tonight and start discussing the issues at hand so that they could understand any concerns that the board might have. And you could bring them all up, because if there is something that you want them to work on and come back with for a second meeting, better to get that done now and start the conversation. You could arguably vote on the 2 at risk. And if they have to come back anyhow because of things that you might want them to clarify, it also gives us an opportunity to re-advertise it just to make sure all the T's are crossed. So you can absolutely discuss it. And just to clarify, it was advertised for number of stories, not building height, but number of stories. So
Okay.
Our building height is dictated by the actual story height, which automatically sets the building height. So yes, you can discuss anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
I do have a couple of questions for the proposal team, if that would be okay, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
Mr. Wood, thank you so much for redeveloping this property. It's been a long time coming. I'm excited to see a proposal for it. I have a couple of technical questions that hopefully Mr. Babbitt can help me with.
Sure.
So I know you guys are looking for a modification to the ground floor retail floor-to-floor height that's typical for this zone. And you're proposing 9'10" for the floor-to-floor. And looking through the drawings, I just need you to help me with the math a little bit. So I see that it's 9'10" and it's 2x12 LVL framing. And then it looks like the ductwork is another 15 inches below that. So right now they're called out as 15x15s on the first floor in the retail space. So even if that got, say, flattened out to a nominal 12x20, that would be 2 feet. out of your floor to floor height. So we're at 710 for like the underside of duct. And then your finished ceiling happens below that. But I did notice that on your door schedule, you're calling for 8-foot doors. And it looks like the storefront assembly is supposed to line up with those doors. So I just wanted to understand the intent of how to handle that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think the architect might be on too. I'm not sure, but looking at that 9'10" height, and I think these are somewhat based off of the existing structure height, and so I'd have to just look closer at what the existing was. So the intent is to, right now the ceiling height I believe is 9'10", so that's the actual bottom of the structure, not the actual top of the floor for the second floor. I think that might be where the confusion is, and I'm not sure. I'm just trying to see if it's in a detail somewhere, a section that's a little more obvious to look at. But right now, if you go into the building, the 9'10" is the ceiling height at the bottom of the existing structure. So that's what we wanted to stick with. So coming down from there is really what we're talking about for any ductwork or things like that. And so that may actually be just an error in where the lines sketched on the plan or put on there on the section. But I have to look closer at it. You get a definite answer on that. But the intent is to save as much of the existing beams and frames that's there, so as to save cost and also construction. It is a tricky build in some ways because it's so close to the neighbor's building next behind it, as well as, you know, getting on the other side of the property is on the neighbor's property. So the idea was to try and save the steel that's there and work with it as opposed to trying to rebuild everything, all new heights.
Okay, so for example, A108 are the architectural sections. There doesn't appear to be a structural section. There's only structural plans in the sets we have. And you on that sheet, the top of floor is at 9'10".
Right, I
So
see
again,
that, yeah.
my concern is about that 2-foot assembly sandwich and what that then does to your actual storefront ribbon and your usable interior space.
Right.
Can we see that? Can you share that with us?
I believe that's impossible. Is it possible for me to, let me see here. Haven't used these controls before.
If you go to sharing, Travis, which is one of the top arrows, and show screen.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. Show, okay, yeah, I have it here.
And then if you go to the next page up, so 108, I think is even clearer. Yeah.
Yes.
Tavis, I believe Natalia is trying to get in, but I don't know if anybody recognized her hand.
Okay. Yeah, Natalia is the lead on this one.
Yeah.
If I could briefly, Natalia, yes, we have 3 instances of Tavis Babbitt, so I have not unmuted all 3 instances. I have now unmuted all 3 instances of Tavis Babbitt.
Thank you.
There's not 3 of me, trust me. Nobody wants it.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Sorry, I'm having a hard time following everybody as everybody's sort of talking over each other. If you could, we just ask that the applicants really please identify who you are every time that you talk and don't just speak out. I'm at least having a hard time following, and I apologize for interrupting, but it's getting challenging for me.
I agree. Thank you. So who's on board right now? Travis?
Yes, I am here. And I'm sharing my screen, I believe.
Who's going to chime in for you?
Hello, I'm Natalia and I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. And Talia, who are you and what firm are you with?
Yes, I'm the architect.
And what's your last name?
Talia Quirino.
Okay. So can you explain this to us maybe a little better?
Yeah, so the existing height of the building below the structure is 9 foot 10. I'm sorry for this mistake. I'll make sure I fix that. But the existing, we're keeping the same floor height as the existing conditions, and the height floor to the structure is 9 foot 10. We have some sill beams in the first floor, which you're gonna keep all of them. We're trying to keep as much as possible as far as structure. And then we're just going up 10 feet to the second floor.
What was the demise of this building? Was it a fire?
Yes.
Okay. And you're happy with what's left there to work with?
This is
Please.
John Wood.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're going to use 3 walls, and then we're going to come and extend the building.
Who's
to the-
speaking? Who's
This is,
speaking?
I said this was John Wood, and I
I
apologize. You
couldn't
didn't
hear
hear
you,
me.
hon. That's okay.
Oh,
Go
my
ahead.
apologies. So yeah, so anyway,
John.
again, John Wood, I just, we're gonna try and keep the 3 walls, and then extend the building to the, to the sidewalk or where the rest of the buildings are on that block. So just trying to maximize the space.
Okay. Ann Fullerton, please.
Thank you. So Natalia, just so I'm totally clear, the underside of the existing steel is 9 foot 10, correct?
Correct.
So the floor to floor height that you'll be asking for is actually the top of the steel, or the top of the slab on top of the steel, or the wood framing on top of the steel. So you guys actually, when you're asking for a modification of that part of the code, the zoning code, it'll actually be taller than 9 foot 10 because you guys will add in the steel structure plus your floor assembly, correct?
Yeah, we're not adding steel structure because they are already existing. I mean, we're adding one in the front, but we're keeping the 3 existing ones.
No, I mean add in the height of it, because your floor to floor height should be the top of your framing to the top of the next floor of framing. So basically your ground floor slab to the top of your steel.
Correct.
Okay.
So in essence, it is still 9 foot 10?
No.
What is it? What is it in?
So I don't know exactly what it is because I don't know how tall the steel framing is, but I think that the design team needs to revise the request to not reflect 9 foot 10 because that is underside of the framing, but rather the top of the framing to the ground floor slab.
I might be able to help. This is Tavis speaking again.
Yes.
So I do believe that the floor to floor height is incorrect. You are right, Ms. Fullerton. So the ceiling height though will remain 9 foot 10. So in the code, it's talking about a 14-foot ceiling height as opposed to a floor to floor. And so the ceiling height would be the top of the old steel, which is what we're going to be sitting the new 2x12s on top of. So that's where the detail is probably not drawn correctly, but the actual bottom of joist will be the same as the existing top of steel. Hopefully that is somewhat clear.
This is Ann speaking again.
Yes.
Ms. White, is that accurate that for the zoning code for this area that it reflects a ceiling height?
She is muted, but I can jump in and say throughout the ordinance, that is incorrect. Floor height or story height is floor to floor height, not floor to ceiling height.
Okay.
Thank you, Charlotte. I had muted myself, as you can tell.
I got you.
So can I ask Ian and Josh to weigh in with Ian Fullerton on this, where you guys are architects? Are you understanding all this? Because if not, we're not going to talk about this much more tonight because that isn't what is in front of us, right? Tonight? Sarah?
Madam Chair, I think it's okay. It's perfectly fine to keep talking about this since regardless, even when they remeasure, they're not going to hit that 14-foot height. So it's probably better that you discuss what you need to discuss with it so that they have whatever homework, so that they understand the homework that they need to do to get their drawings correct.
All right, thank you. So as I said, Josh or Ian, can you chime in with Dan Fullerton's comments and clarify this for us non-architects here?
And you want to do it?
I mean, we want 14, right? No, what do we want? We want 14. And it's not like they're coming and saying they've got 12 or 13. They're coming with 9.10. What does that mean to us? It is going to be retail. And there is going to be ductwork.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to clarify why I brought this up.
Go ahead.
So yes, there'll be retail. It is a retail space, which is typically taller than say a residential or commercial space. And there will be ductwork. I raised it because if the floor to floor height was actually 9'10" and then you took 2 feet out of it for the floor framing and the ductwork, you'd be left with 7'10" minimum, which is substandard. So I wanted to make sure I understood what their proposal was because they are asking for relief on that retail level floor to floor.
Yeah.
And what's come out of the discussion is that there's incorrect information in the documents that they gave us, and that the team will need to go back and rectify the information so that their request for relief is accurate.
Correct. All right, I got it. I think we all have that. So, you got to come back with the proper drawings, number one. And I don't know, but I don't like the idea of it being that, I like the 14. So, I mean, I think it's a retail space. It's on Broadway. It's going to be all new building. You're bringing it out to the sidewalk. I think you're cutting too many corners to come and say, you're not coming saying you're doing 13. And I think it's too radical, 9'10". That's my own opinion. I'm willing to hear the rest of the board, so when we go away tonight, the folks know how creative they have to be, and when they talk with Medford again, too. I understand you're trying to match the Medford side of the ceiling height, so something's got to change, something's got to give. What is Ann Brockelman? Hand up. Ann Josh, go ahead.
Yes. Madam Chair, well, I appreciate Ann Fullerton for looking at this in very detailed manner. I guess it's just like other dimensions, right? We're granting some relief, but it's how much of a relief, and it's supposed to be the minimum hardship. So the relief should be the minimum that they're supposed to do the best they can. So I do agree with that, and I hadn't really done the math myself, so thank you for doing that, Ann.
Okay, thank you, Ann. And Josh, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I agree also. I mean, I understand the issue that's created by it straddling two municipalities and the problem with the number of stories. And so I think there's a strong case for that hardship, but I don't see how that particular circumstance impacts the height of the first floor. It's not like, if I understand right, it's not like the Medford zoning ordinance prohibits first floor heights of 14 feet, right? And so I'd rather see the first story comply with the MR4 requirements, and then I'd be okay with it only being 2 stories total. I mean, it means they're doing more structural work, right? They need new columns, new footings, new framing for the second floor, which used to be the roof. But you know, big picture, I don't see it. I understand the impact on it, but I don't see a strong case for a variance not to do it that way.
I agree. Elaine, you have any comment?
No.
No. Ian, Ian Fullerton, are you into this, like going for the 2 stories, as long as the first floors are the 14 on both sides?
Yeah, I think that would be great. I'm also open to relief if there's a good reason why, because I know they're trying to reuse structure. So I think that is what is the reason that they're looking for relief on that retail level. It's just, I think that we've all come to the conclusion 9'10" would make a substandard space. So I'd like to know what the reuse of structure, that goal would achieve.
Thank you. Travis?
Mhm.
Can
Yes.
you address that last comment?
I think it had a lot to do with the overall impact of the structure being a lot taller than what the neighborhood dictates. In a 2.5-story house, you're looking at a wall height that's somewhere around 20 to 25 feet at most. And that's what we have in the neighborhood behind. And so, you know, the idea was to keep it in a similar scale as to, you know, a 2-story vertical wall face. Typically, you'd have a roof that would go up from that point. And so the idea was to kind of keep it in line with that neighborhood that's behind it. I think that was the idea.
Okay.
As well as saving the structure as much as we could.
Madam Chair, this is Josh. It just seems to me that could be achieved. I mean, if the second floor is just office space, that's actually a fairly high floor to floor, as it shows, for office space. So you could, I mean, I know the section we're looking at is incorrect, but conceptually you could flip the floor to floors of the 2 levels and still end up with the same overall building height to be contextual. It's just that it seems like the commercial floor below should have the greater building height, and that's consistent with the intent of the ordinance and the MR4 dimensional requirements.
If we do the 14 on the first floor, what are we getting on the second?
Well, if you go all the way to 14, it would have to be higher than what they've shown here.
Right.
But I guess my point is that, you know, they've probably shown a higher second floor for an office space than might be needed if they really want to keep the height down. I'd rather see the overall height come out of the office level than out of the commercial level down below.
And if this is Tavis again, just to interject, the second floor is not office space, it's storage space, just to clarify. It's not separate from, if you look at the plan here, it's retail space on the first floor and then storage for the liquor stores on this side. And this is part of the retail space. So, you know, this might be used differently, but most of this is storage.
Is that a double height space in the bottom left-hand corner?
No, this is a single, yeah, so this could be part of that retail space if they choose to use it as such. I'd have to look at the plan here. Let me take a look. So this one area might be, it's flexible space. So, but for the most part, it's just storage. And again, it's a retail space, so it's intended for storage. But again, I'm not sure if that's something that can be dictated specifically.
All right, so are we gonna have these folks go back and straighten out their plans here for us? Showing the 14 for the first floor for the retail all the way through? And then have the second floor show us the real numbers of what they're gonna have up there? And are
May I
we
just
in?
ask one? Sorry, this is Tavis again. Might I ask one question before we go?
Sure.
So in moving forward on that front with raising the first floor and the overall building height, that will require us to go back through Medford's approval process. Is that just wanted to make sure you understand that correctly?
Yeah, and the height, now it's Natalia speaking, and the height of the steel beam is 14 inches. So that means it's 1 feet and 2 inches
I gotta
higher.
go start all over again. Okay, another year.
Well, it's a real predicament. But we are usually saying we'd like 4, we'd go 3. So now we're asked to compromise to 2. And we want the 14, and we're worried about that. You know, I'm sorry what you have to go back and forth on. What's the board want them to do tonight? Gonna straighten out their plans. Ian Fullerton?
I would be satisfied if they revise their plans to represent the accurate floor to floor, which sounds like it'll be approximately 11 feet. And therefore the overall building would not need to grow. That second floor would get shorter as a result. What we see as the second floor would get shorter. That would be an acceptable solution for me.
And how with the second floor, what would it be?
Storage.
I know that, but what would the dimensions be?
It would appear to be 8 feet 10 if they had an 11-foot floor to floor.
Approximately, yeah.
And normally, Josh, what would we have for something like that dimensions? Is 8 foot?
Yeah, I mean, for excuse me, for storage and office space. Yeah, I mean, I think that's typically sufficient.
Okay. Sarah White.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So just to reiterate, so we require 14 feet for the first floor. For the floor above that, we would require 10. So it would be shorter than required on the second floor too. Which if you wanted to entertain a variance for that, you certainly could.
So they've got to come back with new plans with the new dimensions, but also the legal notice too, because this is the floor, right? That we said didn't get
Right.
advertised, right?
Right, we'll rerun that next week or the week after.
Okay, all right. And so then what are we saying? They can come back for a variance on the height for the first floor to what? From 14 to what?
That's what we
That's
don't know at this point. I think Anne said she was satisfied with 11. So the
11.
way the legal ad would be written would be to just discuss the story height and the number of stories and leave it that general.
All right, good. Number of stories. So the height we're going to be looking at is the first floor and the height of the second floor, which would be office or storage space. And then also, we're still going to look at
the number of stories.
Other stories. So
that's 3 variances then.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. Just to reiterate, it is 500 square feet of space of Somerville. I mean, everyone's told me just don't build in Somerville, and I've been in Somerville for 32 years. 32 years. It's a part of me, and I've gotten nothing but kickback for 500 feet of space. It's gotten so frustrating, and I apologize to everyone here listening to me, but as a business person, I'm just so frustrated that we have to go back to Medford again, and I should have just built it in Medford, and then I wouldn't have to go through all this. It's just really frustrating is that I'm a Somerville guy. I want to build in Somerville. I wanted to make this building look as as presentable and as proud as everybody in my neighborhood wants it to be. And all I've gotten is kickback, kickback, kickback. And I feel like I'm in just in the middle of this. And I apologize, Sarah. I'm sorry. I sent you an email and I sent a little tension from you, and I apologize because I just think that everybody's been on vacation. I'm sending emails to everybody to get this thing done. It's been a burned out building for 4.5 years. The people are dumping furniture on it now. I'm having people come in and I'm getting junk people coming and dumping all their stuff in front of the building. I need to move. I got a situation with my current landlord who's kicking me out, who's evicting me, and 32 years. I don't know if I'm going to make it to the 32 because of this. What's going on with this Mr. Zamuto trying to kick me out of my current location. It's been frustrating, and I know everything has to be done and all the T's have to be crossed and the I's dotted. But I'm hoping that we can get the variance, fairly soon. I know obviously there's a mistake on the plans and we need to correct that, obviously. But if we can get away with the 11 feet, I think hopefully Natalia can make that adjustment, and we can get this building up and running, and that I can continue to do business in Somerville, and the city that I love, and make the neighborhood happy. Everybody wants me to be there. I want to be there. And I'll tell you right now, I'm so frustrated. The fact that Medford gave me the permission, and unfortunately, for some reason or another, no one told me that the height requirement until just recently. So this was submitted back in January. Nobody told me that, John, you got to change your plans here, make it 14 feet, and then I would have presented it to Medford, and then I wouldn't have to go back to Medford. But unfortunately, it sat on somebody's desk and it got missed, maybe because of COVID. And but I'm in the middle of all of this, and I'm kind of frustrated at the fact that because someone missed and when we turned the plans in to Somerville again back in January, we didn't find out about the 14 foot height requirement or the three-story minimum until a few months ago, and it was after Medford's approval. So, and I feel like we did it backwards, but it wasn't our fault necessarily. I mean, I'm not putting the blame on anybody here, but I'm completely frustrated as a business owner, and that's been here for 32 years. I want to stay in Somerville. I want to be in Somerville, and it's 500 square feet of space. It's not. It used to be the parking spots for the laundromat. So let's please, I'm begging you people to help me out, help a businessman out. I want to stay in Somerville. Please just let me get this thing done. I know what we have to do. I know it's not perfect. We'll get it done. We'll get the plans fixed as far as to show the requirement. But I need to get out of my current situation. I am completely frustrated, and thanks for listening.
No, that's, we're here to work with you, and we know you've been a businessman all these years. I knew the name and patronized your place, I'm sure, a lot of times.
Thanks a lot.
Sarah, you're the point person on this now, yes? You and
Correct.
Dan?
Correct.
Without us beating this up anymore tonight, because it's called a little bit of a mismatch now, it's getting there. Can you work with this team and maybe give them something that can come forward to us that we can work with and live with as a city?
Please.
I ask, is that something that you would do?
Yeah, what are you thinking of in particular, Madam Chair?
Well, I'm listening to the board, and the board's saying like the first floor, they could work with 11. But now he's saying that in Medford, 11's not good. Is that what you're saying there?
I'm not sure.
This is Tavis.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tavis? Is that the issue? In other words, if we say, okay, we won't go with 14, we'll come down a little bit, we'll do 11 because we feel it's a retail, it's the front, it's this, it's that, it's more professional, it's not substandard. What is that going to do to Medford, if anything?
That is the question. And I believe if we were able to work within the existing height that we have and come up with a solution that might be acceptable. It's a minor change that doesn't affect the exterior or the footprint. It only affects an interior dimension. And so
Is this for
it might be
Medford, you're
something that,
saying?
yes, it might be something that
Okay.
Medford may not have an issue with, but we'd have to check. We have to check.
So Sarah,
so-
that's the answer to one question.
Right, so I think, look, if it's a question of on the interior, right, and what it looks like on the interior, does it matter if there's a difference in ceiling height on the Somerville side, if it's higher on the Somerville side and then it drops on the Medford side? I mean, I don't think we care, and I don't think, like, if you're just gonna keep the same ceiling height on the Medford side, Medford can't care what happens on the Somerville side, right, because it's outside of their jurisdiction. So Tavis, do you see what I'm saying? Like, does it really matter? Like, if it's visually higher on the interior on the Somerville side, so it's a little bit lower on the Medford side of the same building, I don't think that matters, do you? I mean, if you're okay with the aesthetic.
The only area that it comes into play is the stairway for that front unit and access to the front section of the storage from the Woody side, you know, the larger area. You'll see that here on the plan. So we'd be talking about an area in this section that would be raised. And so it could be that this whole section then has to go up because the stairway to get there and then the head height, you know, you'd really have a small area that you'd have to step up to in some way. So it would be a bit complicated, I believe, functionally. Not impossible, but a bit odd, and it could be a difficult thing to navigate with stairs and things up in that little
And then
space.
you have some ADA issues there probably too.
Correct. Something like that.
So I think I can give general suggestions. I'm also not an architect, so I can make general suggestions, but unfortunately I can't help them figure out how to resolve the issue on the interior.
Yeah, no, that's their job. That's their job. That's why I want them to work with you as a planner, but they have to do their job. You got to tell them what we're looking for. I mean,
that's right.
What's them coming in a couple of more weeks? They're coming in with something like tonight. I mean, it's like futile.
Well, right, exactly. So I mean, I think there are a lot of decisions that need to be made, right? Which is, you know, do they want to go back and redesign the interior based on the conversation tonight and figure out a solution? Are they able to do that in time for the next meeting so that I have like a good week and a half, 2 weeks, well, 2 weeks at least, even more before the meeting, before the December meeting, so I can review it, write the report, etc. The other thing is, you know, and this is a conversation I know that John and I have had like many times, right? And is it possible? Does it make sense still to try and do this? Is he going to get what he needs based on the zoning constraints and what the ZBA wants to see and what they're willing to settle for, and then making that transition from the Somerville side to the Medford side? And I know he wants to add this addition, but is it longer to his goal to do that than it is, you know, on the Medford side? And I know that you want to do, you know, this addition on the Somerville side for, you know, various business reasons and stuff. It's a lot of, it's like a trying to pull apart the individual components of a nest, right? To come out with like, yeah. So I think that a lot of these things are definitely decisions that, you know, we can say that like, these are your decision points that you're at and what will make sense for you. Yeah, but ultimately, yeah.
And they want it.
I definitely know what you're looking for.
2 stories, right? They don't want to go with the 3. They want 2.
Right.
Can't.
Okay. So that's the variant. So there's the other variant. Okay.
That's right.
All right. So you guys got to get your stuff together, correct your little errors, improve your numbers, work with Sarah, and figure out when you guys can come up before us again and meeting all the deadlines, you know, for the paperwork. Ann Fullerton, yes, hands up.
You're muted, Ann.
Thanks. I didn't think anybody wanted to hear a screaming toddler. So I just wanted to give the team, the proposal team, the one other question that I had for them, or the one other comment I had actually for the full board, was that 2 air handlers that will be required for this building. They're just on the other side of the zoning line. So they're just on the Medford side of the zoning line. And I know air handlers can be a noise issue for a neighborhood. And I would propose that they're sized and specified appropriately to meet the most restrictive of the 2 communities' requirements. So whether Medford is more restrictive for decibels or Somerville is more restrictive, that they're basically sized to meet or specified to meet whatever community is most restrictive.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? So can we,
Sorry,
Sarah?
Madam Chair, if I may, just to give the board the full context of the process here. So in addition to getting the, whatever variances they ultimately need from the ZBA, if they're approved after that, they still have to go through the site plan approval process. So they still have to go forward with their planning board process, neighborhood meeting, design review committee, as many times as the design review committee wants them to come back, another neighborhood meeting, report, and go before the planning board. So there is still quite a bit of work ahead of them. So I would recommend to the applicant team that as you go forward looking at these particular issues that the ZBA wants you to address, that you're also thinking several steps ahead about what this is going to need to be for your planning board process too, right? Because you don't, like we had talked about before, we don't want to see you do anything on the exterior of the building that will then generate the need for another variance, whether it's the amount of glazing or things like that, that could otherwise be wiped away by just addressing it in your design. So think several steps ahead as you go and make these changes based on the ZBA's feedback tonight.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, so can we have a motion to continue till, what dates are we looking at tentatively? The 15th, is it, or something in December?
So, Madam Chair, our next 2 meetings are the 15th in December, which the legal notice for which, if we're going to re-advertise this case, is due November 29th. And with Thanksgiving being late next week, I think that may push submission deadlines earlier, although I will let Sarah discuss that more particularly since she is the planner working on this. The ZBA meeting following the 15th is January 5th.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's why I'm just bringing it out because I know we usually have the one in December. And so Sarah will talk with the applicant about if they can meet the 15th deadline. If not, we got to go to the 5th. I know the clock's ticking. I heard Mr. Woods, Mr. John Wood. I have compassion for him. I'm a businesswoman myself. I get it. But things got to be done right. And just sometimes things just don't fall to place the way we want that are legally right. So can we just say we'll go to the 15th for the continuing? If they can't make it, they'll continue it to the 5th. Good? Okay. So Mr. Safdie, would you please make a motion for the next meeting for this December 15th? And if they can't make that, they can come back to us for a continuance,
Understood. In the case of 43 Broadway, ZBA case number P&Z 21-012, I make a motion that we continue our deliberations to our next scheduled hearing of December 5th, 2021.
Second.
Seconded by Elaine Severino. All in favor, we'll go around, say aye, please. Elaine Severino,
Aye.
Ann Fullerton,
Aye.
Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
Catherine Garavaglia,
Aye.
Josh Safdie,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show it was unanimous. 5 board members and our alternate all voting in the affirmative to continue till the 15th. Thank you, folks. Good luck. You're working with somebody good with Sarah, so hang in there, keep the faith. Sarah, thank you for all your help tonight. Wonderful seeing you.
So nice
right,
to
honey.
see all of you.
All right, honey. Take care. Have a good holiday.
You
Is
too.
there
Have a
any
great
other-
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank
You
you.
too. Thank you. Is
Aye.
there any other business? Any other business the board would like to take up tonight? Seeing none, hearing none, we'll close that portion. And personally, I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, healthy Thanksgiving, you and your families. And ask the clerk to please make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Elaine Severino. All in favor, say aye. Elaine Severino.
Aye.
Ann Fullerton.
Yes.
Ann Brockelman.
Aye.
Catherine Garavaglia.
Aye.
Josh Safdie.
Aye.
And Susan Fontano, aye. Let it show it was unanimous, 5 plus our alternate. And I just want to thank everybody and our new board member and everybody for all your input tonight. Great conversation, great questions. Thank you very much. Have a good day and good night, good day tomorrow.
Bye.
Good night.